Guardians of the Galaxy is finally over, and what started off as a surprise hit in 2014 has reached a dramatic and heartfelt conclusion. In today's video, I'm going to go over my brief overall review of the movie. Towards the end, I'm going to get into my MFing spoiler reviews, so stay to the end if you want to hear my true MFing thoughts. What I really want to know, guys, is your thoughts in the comment section below. Did you like it? Were you disappointed? Do you agree with my opinion? And don't forget to subscribe and join the MF army. I don't bite hard. Okay, we find our characters establishing themselves on Nowhere as galaxy protectors. And they do mention the Christmas special on Disney Plus, so make sure you check that out before you see this movie. Peter Quill is still mourning the loss of his Gamora and the return of the new Gamora from another timeline, which is not the same person that he knew and loved. And Rocket, Groot, Mantis, and Nebula, they're all back as Peter's backups. From the opening, you can tell that there's a little different tone here. Our happy-go-lucky characters are no longer happy. Everything's more somber as they open up to Radiohead's Creep. And right away we get into Rocket's flashbacks and we get to learn more about his past and how he became Rocket the Raccoon. And this is where the movie quickly turns super grim, and I know a lot of the audience members are very sensitive to animal cruelty. I totally get it. And you know, the thing is, this movie does not hold back. And from the trailers, you can see that this is largely about Rocket's backstory. And I'm telling you right now, you've been warned. This is very sensitive stuff. And yet this movie still manages to balance those heavy, dark themes with the quippy banter of the Guardians back and forth, and it's still pretty funny. One of the characters I'm really glad they focused on again is Drax the Destroyer. From Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Drax had a particular motive and purpose, and over the years we've kind of forgotten that. But they decided to redeem Drax a little bit. He's not just a bumbling, fumbling idiot. He's a warrior. He has strength and power, but he also has heart, and he also has a purpose to being with the Guardians. Also, Nebula and Mantis have come full circle, and they've grown tremendously, not just in character development, but also their contributions to the fights and the battlefield. But in my opinion, this is top tier Marvel. When was the last time you knew that some of the characters were not going to make it through? Infinity War, Endgame. This movie, it has some seriously high stakes, and it gets emotional and pretty serious at times. And let's talk about the action. Love him or hate him, you gotta give it to James Gunn. He knows how to craft some of the best action scenes I've ever seen. He knows how to have multiple characters fight together as a team, and yet they all still have their individual moment to shine and bask in the glory. One fight scene in particular that stands out, it's one of those one-take shots that lasts for like 3 minutes, and it's pure adrenaline, pure madness. It's like one of those scenes that's like, don't forget the Guardians of the Galaxy are some badass. Jesus. And don't you forget it. Of course, the soundtrack is a living, breathing character, and it's become one of the best parts of this franchise. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 continues to introduce all the kids and new audiences to some of our favorite artists and songs. You got Earth, Wind & Fire, Beastie Boys, Radiohead, Bruce Springsteen, and so many others. Now let's get into the negatives of the movie. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. I know it's going to be a main talking point and probably the first thing you're going to hear about this movie. This movie may be considered too dark and violent for children. Even for me during the movie, I found myself asking, should I show my children this movie? But it's kind of hard because it's part of the why and the how of this movie and the importance of it and how it makes it effective. And we don't want to normalize animal suffering or animal cruelty, but sometimes you have to shine a light on the problem so that you can find a solution and make sure it doesn't happen again. So the main flashback didn't just happen in the beginning of the movie, it was spread out throughout the movie, so you had to kind of relive those moments, and it actually got harder and harder to digest. Other problem for me, and super disappointing, but I saw it coming, was Adam Warlock. When I heard that Will Poulter's gonna be playing him, I got super excited because I saw how committed he was. He got really beefed up for the role, and I loved him in We're the Millers, and he's come a long way. But I think they had to nerve him a lot. If you go back to the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, he was introduced in the end credit scene. But so much has happened since then. It's been like 6 years. And also James Gunn was fired from Disney. And so I think they had to kind of throw him in here as kind of an afterthought. I think one of the original plans was he was going to go head to head versus Thanos. And in the comics, he does. He actually does lead the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I believe he does beat Thanos in some of the comics. I just didn't like the way they handled it. They kind of made him like a child or an adolescent. They basically unplugged him before he was finished downloading, so he couldn't fully utilize his powers. I actually forgot that he was in the movie towards the end. I was like, oh yeah, Adam Warlock's in this movie. If you go back to the first movie, Groot and Rocket were best friends. Rocket was the first one to understand Groot's language, and it felt like they had a really, really tight bond. But in this movie, Groot was kind of sidelined. He was nowhere near as emotional with the other characters, especially with Rocket. But Groot was actually cool in terms of the action and all of his secret abilities that he can use with his limbs and his head and his body. I guess it's maybe because Groot had to kind of grow up again. He was more of the adult version in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, he was a baby, a kid, a teenager, and back to kind of more of a young adult Groot. But overall, this movie was great, and it was a great way to kind of tie up the Guardians of the Galaxy. I felt like they stuck the landing. Although it lacked some of the lightheartedness from some of the previous movies, it was still emotional and very powerful, and it was super unexpected. And you know, I've come to love these characters from beginning to end in all the different movies, from Guardians Volume 1 to the Avengers movies, the Christmas holiday special. These characters are so well developed and so lovable and likable, and I had a great time with this movie. And that's why I'm going to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3...
No, don't do it!
...a B+. All right, all you MFers out there, if you've stuck around to the very end, then you know I'm about to get into my MFing spoilery review. So if you haven't seen the movie, click away, go watch it, guys, and then come back. So here we go, guys. You've been warned. 3, 2, 1, let's go. The High Evolutionary is the most evil psalm I've ever seen. And I was watching the movie, and I saw the little animals in the cages. I knew it was going to be bad. It was dark and creepy, and then they walked up towards the light to see Rocket, and Rocket had half his head shaved, and he was in so much pain. He was a baby, and the first words he said was, hurt, hurt. And then you see the other characters walk up, and they have all these machinery and wheels and all kinds of abominations. And I felt like the High Evolutionary deserved the worst punishment. And when I saw Rocket Raccoon claw up his face and chunks and blood were flying off in the dark, I felt it was justice. The whole flashback scene was very depressing. It was very hard to get through and to watch. And the worst part of all, and probably the hardest thing I had to see, was Layla getting... And all I could think about was Rocket and his friends laying down in a little star formation, and Layla saying over and over again, having friends is good. And she would say it in the most innocent way. And that really hit home, because Rocket does have friends. He has a family now, but he lost his first family when he was a baby. Hearing him scream in pain, that really hurt. Let's talk about Adam Warlock and how big and dumb he was. I thought he looked cool. I thought he looked amazing. They didn't really discuss and get into, you know, there's supposed to be an infinity stone in his forehead, but they had to kind of make him not the central character. And I don't think it's James Gunn's fault. I think that just through a matter of circumstances over the years, they had to kind of shoehorn him in. I understand why they had to make him like a kid, to where he's trying to figure out what side of the tracks he's on. But if you're an Adam Warlock fan, I think you're going to go into this being let down and disappointed. And when we got to the ending, I could kind of feel where it was going, because if you think about the Christmas special and everything that they've gone through in terms of where they've been and the loss, it was time to kind of hang up your spurs and kind of retire a little bit. That's why I could see Star-Lord going off and going back to Earth. I mean, that's a big one. He has yet to go back to visit his grandpa after all this time. It's been like, what, 30 years? And if you stuck around for the post-credit scene, then you got to see the formation of the new Guardians of the Galaxy. Rocket is the new team leader. And you got King Groot, Adam Warlock, Cosmo, Kraglin, and Mila Vale, who I had to do a little research on. It seems like she has sort of like Captain Marvel powers, but she's one of the children that they were experimenting on, and I'm glad to see that she kind of made it into the Guardians. One of the biggest surprises for me was the very, very end of the movie, where it says the legendary Star-Lord will return. My hopes are that he's going to come back for Secret Wars. I mean, now he's on Earth, right? That would be the obvious thing. What I hope that they don't do is make a Disney Plus show or some sort of cameo. You know, I think he's developed so much, but at the same time, it is a great way to kind of end it there. I'm curious to see what they're going to do moving forward. I mean, he's no longer part of the Guardians. He's no longer a half a celestial or whatever. So he's kind of now a regular guy. And it's time for him to just enjoy the rest of his years. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Today was a great day. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It was deep, it was dark, but you know what? Sometimes it's necessary. Something different, to be honest. We kind of needed it right now. And don't forget to subscribe and join the MF Army today. We just want to have some fun and talk smack in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. God bless, and we will see you on the next one.